American Indian Studies as a degree at the UNC FedEx Global Center, which appreciates and recognizes global peoples and indigenous peoples throughout this world. Good evening, my name is Amy Laughlin-Rattel, and this event has been long in the making. It was over 1 year ago when Laura Rice, that Chris mentioned, first approached me to ask me what I thought about Alyssa's work. She asked me to review her work on paper with the intent of inviting her here to serve as our artist for the semester at the FedEx Global Education Center. And I can say that I was impressed, very impressed and intrigued by her work on paper, and I'm completely blown away by it here in person. Absolutely beautiful, and we're thrilled to have you. I'm so pleased that this evening has finally come to fruition. The mission of the American Indian Center is to bridge the richness of Native cultures with the strengths of Carolina, many of which you've already heard about through research, education, and service. And I'd like to think that tonight's event is one of those events that helps us accomplish and carry out our mission. So this evening I have the distinct pleasure to introduce to you our artist for the semester, Alyssa Hinton. Her exhibit here, The Awakening, Parallel Worlds, features mixed media composite work and addresses parallel themes of Native American cultural reawakening and human kinship with the natural environment. The intricate, complex, and contemporary work of hers uses artistic mediums as well as incorporates American Indian symbolisms to the folklore and history of her Tuscarora and Osage heritage. Her work is influenced by traditional Chinese painting techniques, which Alyssa studied while in Beijing in the 1980s, and her art reflects the organic beauty that she finds in the elements and often incorporates Southeastern mound culture and signs and concepts. She earned her Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from Tyler School of Arts in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, after studying arts in both China and France, as she received a Mid-Atlantic Regional Painting Fellowship. She's also the recipient of an Indigenous Survival Grant from the United Nations Life Bridge Foundation. Her work has been exhibited throughout the country and abroad, including Artrain USA, the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian, the 2005 Florence Biennial in Italy, as well as the Institute of American Indian Art in Santa Fe. She's appeared on NBC TV and has been featured in Native Peoples Magazine, Aboriginal Voices Magazine, and Random House's official price guide to Native American art. It is my distinct pleasure and my honor to introduce to you Alyssa Hinton.
In the United States, and what's now the United States, we're right here in North Carolina, conjoined here. You've had Iroquoian people, you had Siouan people, and Algonquin people. And they were existing kind of like in strips of land, all converging here in North Carolina. So of course they needed to have a trade language as well, since trading was big here and you had these different nations together, they needed to have a trade language. And so this is one of the reasons why I started to realize, okay, there's a history here of internationalism. So I found that to be really interesting, and then I started to write about it, which you can read more about it in some of the text panels. And the descendants of these groups of people are still here. We still exist, but we are now nations within United States boundaries as opposed to just nations dealing with other nations in the region the way it was in the past. And many of us are here on the UNC campus right now, and I guess that probably has a lot to do with the Indian program here getting to the point that it is at right now. But in many cases, especially in North Carolina, the Indian identity and in Indian nations and families has gone relatively underground because of historical events that took place. You have the Indian Wars of the 1700s, where the Tuscarora, which was one of the largest groups in North Carolina, Tuscarora especially, were fighting for the homeland. You had triracial communities within the Tuscarora, where you had whites and blacks joining the Tuscaroras in these isolated communities and living according to Tuscarora codes. You had, at the end of the wars, this is over a period of a couple hundred years, at the end of the Indian Wars here, you had enslavement of the survivors, not just the Tuscarora, but other groups. And then you had a scattering, disbursement of families and nations because of that. So within the slave system that was here, everything was pretty much divided in terms of black or white. So as an Indian here at that time, or an Indian slave, you pretty much had to identify as one of those. You were either black, or you might be considered mulatto, or you might just be called a free person of color. But at that point, you probably weren't actually identified as an Indian, per se. So because of that history here, I think the Indian voice remained relatively silent for a very long period of time. And so in families like mine, people didn't speak of it very much. I kind of had to really squeeze hard to get any information out of my grandparents, which I did manage to do, which ended up being a good starting point for me in my journey back down here and just digging up all kinds of information. And I think I am one of many people that are nowadays kind of like digging down and trying to reconnect with their Indian identity, since it was kind of in hibernation, so to speak, relative hibernation for so long. So I really see right now that there's an indigenous awakening across the whole country. It's going on here. It's going on everywhere. It's going on even down in South America and Central America, where there's this kind of delayed reaction of several generations gone by, possibly even 7 generations gone by, and people are now waking up. And there's events going on currently that, even events that took place in the last year, that prove the point that I'm making, where, for example, the event Idle No More, actually an Idle No More movement that took place, is a series of gatherings where people gathered in malls and commercial areas and actually did ceremonial songs and dances to protest poverty conditions and poor housing conditions within Indian communities. That happened within this past year. Also, right here in North Carolina, in the Greenville area, a Tuscarora memorial was put up involving ECU and the current landowners out there in an area that used to be a Tuscarora stronghold. They pretty much facilitated the construction of a huge art-shaped monument, kind of like North Carolina's Wounded Knee monument. And they put it right near the site of the Tuscarora massacre that took place about 300 years ago, where about 1,000 Tuscarora were killed, and that pretty much opened up North Carolina to the trade and commerce that we have now. So that's pretty amazing that ECU and the landowners and the other people involved got to this point where they actually put up a monument. It was a major historical event. Another event that is taking place still, I believe, is called the Two-Row Wampum. It's like a series of reenacted events that are relating to Iroquois sovereignty, and they had a series of canoe trips and other things that they're doing to address the whole idea of the fact that the Iroquois are still a sovereign nation. So saying all that to kind of lead into the main theme that you'll find in my artwork, which is a theme of transformation. If you look at my work, you'll see a lot of kind of like dark areas, and then there's light coming out of the darkness, or you might see like an embryo. For example, in the piece right there with the magenta sky, you'll see a mound, and then there's a baby there, an embryo there about to be born. So basically what I'm signifying with a lot of those symbols is the idea of rebirth, the idea of a Southeastern cultural reawakening going on. Because there are a lot of people that are still here on this land. And when I moved down here, I thought, well, maybe by me moving back down here, I'll be closer to, I'll be on location, so to speak, and I'll be able to tap into these, whatever it is that's still here in the land, and it will come out in my work. I was involved in different art groups, and all of these things were part of me and other people unearthing things that have been kind of submerged for a really long time. The history, the culture, the identity that was here. And like I said, you see a lot of examples of that whole idea of things that have been buried or contained for a really long time kind of popping out into the open. Also, I use a lot of mound-based designs, and you'll see cultural symbols and things that are more like memories or dreams that come to me that I'm representing in the work. And then there's one central theme that I think kind of ties all the work together that's here, and that would be the environment, just the whole issue of the ecology and what's happening with the ecology. And that would be represented best by the fiber composite over there in the corner there. Because in that I'm taking really powerful concepts, medicine wheel concepts from the medicine wheel philosophy, and pretty much putting it all in there to represent seasonal cycles, the 4 elements, the cosmos, animal totems, creation stories are in there. There's a lot of levels of information that are all wrapped up in that piece over there. And then in the center of the piece, if you look down and you look in the center of the medicine wheel, you'll see there's an opening that points upward. And if you look carefully, you'll see there's a yellow half and a black half, and then intersecting that, there's a red half and a white half if you look underneath. And that represents the duality that ties together not opposites, but things that are complementary opposites, I would say. So night and day, feminine and masculine, logical and intuitive, all those kinds of things that are considered to be opposing, but they are in reality complementary as well. And that actually describes a lot of Indian culture and philosophy and thought, just that whole idea of the duality, having two things existing together simultaneously. And I think that with the ecological issues, I think that that's a really important thing to focus on, because that's something that can bring everybody together, because that's a global concern now. That's something everybody has to kind of grapple with and figure out, what are we going to do from here on. And so I'll pretty much end my lecture with that. I hope you enjoy the work. If you're interested in purchasing anything, just let me know. There's a sign-up sheet there where you can subscribe to my website, and there's business cards there. And I would be very happy to speak to anybody that would like to talk to me.